I am a chief engineer on a cruise ship. Our 14th floor is haunted. I've always had an affinity for the sea, ever since I was a child. Growing up near the coast, the salty air and the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the shore were my constants. My father, a shipbuilder, instilled in me a love for engineering. By the time I was 25, I had worked on several ships and knew every nook and cranny of their mechanical hearts. Eventually, I landed a job as the chief engineer aboard the Sea Siren, a majestic cruise liner known for its luxury and impeccable service. For over a decade, I served on the Sea Siren. I took pride in maintaining her, ensuring she sailed smoothly through calm and stormy seas alike. But beneath the glitz and glamour, the ship had secrets, old and dark, that not even the most seasoned sailors could explain. My journey into the unknown began during a routine inspection that led me to a place that shouldn't exist. It was a quiet afternoon when I decided to conduct a thorough inspection of Deck 13. I had a strange feeling, a sort of unease that gnawed at the back of my mind. As I walked down the corridor, I noticed something odd, an old, rusted door that I had never seen before. I've walked these halls countless times and I was certain that door wasn't there. Curiosity got the better of me, and I pushed it open. Beyond the door was a narrow stairwell, its steps leading upward. I felt a chill, but I attributed it to a draft. Still, something about the stairwell felt wrong. The Sea Siren only had 13 decks, so what was this? I hesitated but decided to climb the stairs. As I ascended, the air grew colder, unnaturally so. My breath fogged up in front of me. When I reached the top, I found myself in a dimly lit corridor labeled Deck 14. My flashlight flickered as I scanned the hallway. The walls were lined with old, faded wallpaper, and the carpet beneath my feet was damp and musty. I heard faint whispers echoing through the corridor, like distant conversations just out of earshot. I felt an overwhelming sense of being watched. Turning a corner, I saw a shadowy figure standing at the end of the hall. It was a woman, her form barely visible in the dim light. She turned and walked through a door, which slammed shut behind her. My heart pounded in my chest as I sprinted back down the stairs, not stopping until I was back on Deck 13. When I checked the ship's schematics later, there was no mention of Deck 14. It simply didn't exist. Life aboard the Sea Siren was usually a blend of rigorous routine and serene moments of relaxation. My day started early, around 5:30 a.m. I would check in with the night shift crew to get updates on any overnight issues. Then, I'd make my rounds, inspecting the engines, checking fuel levels, and ensuring all mechanical systems were running smoothly. The ship itself was a marvel of modern engineering and luxury. Passengers enjoyed a plethora of amenities, a grand dining hall, several fine dining restaurants, a lavish spa, multiple swimming pools, a casino, and a theater with nightly performances. The promenade deck offered stunning ocean views, and the ship's nightclub buzzed with energy every evening. For the engineering crew, our world was below deck. The engine room was our domain, a symphony of pistons, gears, and turbines. Despite the hard work, the camaraderie among the crew made it bearable. We'd share stories, jokes, and sometimes a quiet drink in our quarters after a long shift. But after my encounter with Deck 14, everything changed. After my initial encounter with Deck 14, I noticed a change in the crew, especially the motormen. They started acting distant, almost hostile. The conversations that were once filled with laughter and camaraderie became terse and strained. Mark, one of the most reliable motormen, began muttering to himself, his eyes darting nervously around the engine room. One evening, I overheard a hushed conversation between two crew members. They spoke of seeing a woman in a tattered dress wandering the halls at night. When I approached them, they fell silent and quickly dispersed, casting wary glances over their shoulders. It became clear that the encounter with Deck 14 was affecting more than just me. A week later, a passenger named Emily went missing. She was last seen entering her cabin on Deck 13, but when her friends checked on her the next morning, she was gone. Her belongings were still in her room, untouched. Her friends were adamant that she wouldn't have left without telling them. They described her as a responsible and grounded person, not someone prone to sudden disappearances. The security team and I scoured the ship, but there was no trace of her. I couldn't shake the feeling that her disappearance was connected to the mysterious Deck 14. I returned to the area where I had found the rusted door, but it was gone, replaced by a seamless, unblemished wall. The incident left everyone on edge. The ship's atmosphere changed, a sense of unease settling over the crew and passengers alike. It felt as if the ship itself was hiding something dark and malevolent. Determined to find answers, I delved into the ship's history. In the archives, I found an old journal belonging to one of the original engineers. His entries detailed a hidden floor where strange things happened, phantom passengers, unexplainable cold spots, and whispers in the dark. He wrote about a woman in a tattered dress who seemed to be the source of these occurrences. The journal mentioned that anyone who stumbled upon this floor was never the same again. As I read, I felt a chill run down my spine. I realized I was not the first to encounter Deck 14. A few nights later, as I walked past the spot where I had found the door, I felt an intense cold. It was summer, and the air conditioning was off in that section. The temperature drop was abrupt and unnatural. I turned to see a figure standing in the corridor, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. It was the woman in the tattered dress. She pointed toward the wall where the door had been, then vanished. When I touched the wall, it was ice cold, as if something on the other side was draining the heat. I could feel a faint vibration, like a heartbeat, pulsing through the wall. I decided to place thermal cameras in the area to capture any temperature fluctuations. Reviewing the footage the next day, I saw brief moments where the temperature dropped drastically, but there was no visible source for the cold. It was as if the very air was being manipulated by an unseen force. Crew members began reporting strange whispers coming from the walls, particularly around Deck 13. Some claimed to hear their names being called, others heard warnings or pleas for help. The whispers were most prominent late at night, when the ship was quiet and the corridors were empty. One night, while investigating these reports, I distinctly heard a voice say, "Die," echoing down the empty corridor. It was the same voice I had heard on Deck 14. The whispers seemed to come from within the walls themselves, as if they were alive and communicating with us. I started mapping the locations where the whispers were heard, hoping to find a pattern. To my astonishment, they formed a path leading to the spot where I had found the rusted door. It was as if the ship was guiding me back to Deck 14. The encounters became more frequent and more violent. One night, while making my rounds, I felt a sharp push, sending me sprawling to the floor. I looked up to see the woman in the tattered dress standing over me, her face twisted in anger. "Die," she hissed, her voice cold and venomous. I scrambled to my feet and ran, the sound of her chilling laughter echoing behind me. Her malevolent presence was undeniable. She wasn't just haunting the ship, she was trying to hurt us. The crew's behavior grew more erratic, and I feared that she was influencing their minds, driving them to madness. Things took a darker turn when one of the motormen, Alex, was found dead. It appeared he had hanged himself in his cabin. His colleagues were shocked, as he had shown no signs of distress or depression. But those who had been closest to him confided in me that he had been acting strange ever since my first encounter with Deck 14. Alex had mentioned hearing whispers and seeing the woman in the tattered dress. He was convinced she was trying to communicate something to him. The night before his death, he was found wandering the corridors, muttering to himself and clutching an old photograph of a young woman. The next morning, he was dead. The incident shook the crew deeply. It was officially ruled a suicide, but I knew better. The woman in the tattered dress had claimed another victim. Her influence was spreading, and I feared more lives would be lost unless I could find a way to stop her. Late one night, I woke to find my cabin door open. In the doorway was Lydia, her dress dripping seawater. She whispered, "You will not survive," and then vanishing. Her presence filled the room with an icy chill. I felt an overwhelming compulsion to return to Deck 13, as I couldn't take this anymore. When I arrived, the rusted door was back, as if waiting for me. I climbed the stairs to Deck 14, determined to uncover its secrets and free the trapped souls. The corridor was colder than ever, the whispers louder and more urgent. I followed the path the cameras had mapped, leading me to an old, locked chest hidden in a small, forgotten room. As I opened it, a cold wind swept through, and the walls seemed to close in. Inside the chest was Lydia's dress, still damp and covered in seaweed, along with her personal belongings, an old diary, a locket, and a pair of shoes. I don't know how, but I just knew that I had to destroy these belongings in order to set the spirit free, just like in movies. As I gathered the items, Lydia appeared, her face a mask of rage. She lunged at me, and I felt her cold hands around my throat, choking the life out of me. With a last surge of strength, I tore the dress from her grasp and threw it into the furnace in the engine room. The flames consumed the dress, the locket, and the diary, turning them to ash. Lydia screamed, a sound that echoed through the ship, then vanished in a wisp of smoke. The final encounter left me physically and emotionally drained. I barely made it out alive, but I knew the sea siren and her passengers were finally free from Lydia's sinister presence. The cold spots, whispers, and apparitions ceased. The missing passenger, Emily, was never found. I left the ship soon after, unable to shake the feeling that there were more dark secrets lurking beneath her surface. It was then that I heard the rumors. Crew members whispered about the old captain's affair with Lydia, about how she had mysteriously disappeared. The rumors hinted that the captain had killed her, silencing her forever. I realized with a sickening certainty that I had stumbled upon the truth. Lydia's spirit had been bound to the ship by her murder, her restless soul seeking justice. But in destroying her belongings, I had also destroyed the evidence. I never told anyone my story, as I thought they would never believe me. The captain, long retired, would never face justice for his crime. I was left with a bitter sense of unfinished business. The sea siren was free of Lydia's ghost, but the dark stain of her murder remained, hidden beneath the ship's luxurious veneer. The captain walked free, his secret safe. I could do nothing but carry the weight of that knowledge, haunted by the echoes of a crime that would never be brought to light.